That means nobody can leave until we say the magic word, which is, we will fund you. This is the last panel of the day before cocktails. It's the diagnostic panel. Diagnostic venture capital has been up and down, thanks to Elizabeth Holmes. And I have a report from Goldman Sachs on the global venture landscape, and one from another bank on the value of venture capital investments in diagnostics. And if anybody would like to take a look, I can send you a copy at the end of the program. And I have an esteemed panel with me that I'm sure will be able to answer all of your questions. And even if you don't have any questions, they have some of their own for you. Like, why are you even in this business? Okay, we won't go there. I'm going to ask everybody to introduce themselves, tell you what their fund is like, tell you a little bit about themselves, and then we'll go on to discuss the landscape of diagnostics. We'll start with Dennis, go down the line.
Hello everyone, I think I'm the only non-venture capital investor here in the panel. I work for Roche Diagnostics. It's we're part of 90,000 plus people company. We do have Roche Venture Fund, which I'm not a member of, which is sort of standalone financial union. It's not a strategic fund that taps onto the experiences that we have both in pharmaceutical division and diagnostics. My current role is a transactional manager. Basically, I negotiate deals on behalf of Roche Diagnostics with particular focus on next generation sequencing technologies. So Roche, as a worldwide leader in vitro diagnostics, has an aspiration to become the #1 company in clinical sequencing. So recently we've completed, I think, 7 acquisitions in the last 3 years. And there are many more activities happening. Yeah, that's what I'm kind of about.
Hi, I'm Alexis G. I work at Illumina Ventures. So Illumina Ventures is a newly set up, independently run venture capital firm. Illumina is the biggest investor, but we also have investors from other corporate financial investors globally. So we are early stage VC firm, so we invest in several areas, but we center around genomics technology and want to look at disruptive genomics technologies and applications, but we look much broader than just sequencing. So we focus on life science tools, diagnostics, therapeutics platforms, and other areas affected by genomic technologies. So our aspiration is to become the go-to VC firm for genomics companies that's raising early stage financing. So typically we invest between $10 to $15 million in the life cycle of a company. We like to come in as the first institutional VC, typically in Series A round. Our initial check size runs between 2 to 8, typically around 5 million. So about myself, I joined Illumina Ventures last summer, shortly after the fund was set up. And prior to then, I was at Wuxi Venture, which was a US-China cross-border investor. And I spent a couple years at Arch Venture, another US early-stage VC firm. So I started my career as in pharmaceutical companies, doing R&D, and also biotech companies before switching to VC. A really pleasure to be here.
So I'm Tom Hawes. I'm a partner at Sandbox Industries, and we do a number of things. I guess the most relevant one as to why I'm here is we manage the Blue Cross Blue Shield Venture Fund, which is a different type of fund. So it's one that back in 2008, a bunch of Blue executives and then partners at Sandbox got together and they said, is there a way we could leverage the assets, the networks, and the market power of the Blues in a new type of corporate venture program. And if you know much about the Blues, you know that, at least at the time, that sounded pretty crazy, because you have these 36 different and distinct and separate big corporations, and they were trying to figure out, okay, how can you actually get them to work together and collaborate, and do so in such a way that would operate at market speed and create value. And that's hard to do in corporate venture, but fortunately it's been working. working well enough now. We're in year 9 and on our 3rd fund. So the first fund had 11 of the blue plans, there are 36. The second fund had 21 of the blue plans involved, and now we have 30 of the blues involved. So we have almost all of the blues involved, and about 550 million under management from them. And Sandbox is the fund manager, so we are the kind of the central coordinator and group that does all the day-to-day venture activity for and on behalf of the Blue Fund. So I'm one of the partners there. I'm the lone doc on the team, so I love to work with and look at companies that touch the patient and drive clinical innovation. And so, and we have made investments in some diagnostic companies as well as companies that can improve the way clinicians practice. But glad to be here.
Greetings, I'm Terry Moore. I'm known as the VC Regatta guy. So any of those investors here in the audience that are here on Friday, we have our 5th annual VC Regatta. And that's where I've got my friends with their boats, and we bring the investors from across the country. We have VCs from Boston and New York and Texas and all over the country coming here Friday to jump on 16 sailboats and race around the bay. And then I bring our entrepreneurs that are raising capital together on the boats with the VCs that are investing in that sector. So it's been a big success. It's growing every year. I'm also the founder and chairman of the VC Roundtable here in our 16th year in Southern California, and the managing partner and the founder of More Venture Partners in the MVP VC funds. And this is the 5th fund that we're closing and the 3rd fund that I've done on my own since 2010. We're tech and life sciences investors, so diversified by sector as also by stage. So we do about 1/3 Series A, or early stage, and the balance are growth, Series C, B, C, and D rounds. And what's unique about More Venture Partners in the MVP VC funds is that I source deals from underserved markets, mostly from the western states and the Southwest. So last week I spent 2 days in Denver. I look at deals in Salt Lake City, Austin. We're investors in Savara Pharmaceuticals that listed on the NASDAQ in April, a specialty pulmonary drug development company. We also use our partners, so our limited partners like nobody else. So we've got 2 partners with 30 years of experience from Lilly. We've got an IP attorney that works for me from Emlyn Pharmaceuticals. We've got a Stanford professor, a former CMEA partner, and we've got just a wealth of experience and talent in the partnership. So we have quarterly partner meetings, and we showcase our deals before our partners to get their feedback and input on those opportunities before we make investment. I'm well connected in Silicon Valley and back east and with top corporates. So we have a mandate to our investors to only invest with top VC funds and top corporates. And typically in the Series B rounds, those are larger transactions. I think our minimum B round was 15 million, and our largest was over 40 million. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. I think since you're the last one to speak, I'm going to make you give me a landscape how you see the diagnostic area now. I know you have a broad fund in tech. Tech is actually playing into diagnostics. Maybe you could speak a little bit about what you look for in a deal and what's most important to have for your investment strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. So early in our first fund's life, we had the opportunity to invest in Astute Medical. And in the case of Astute Medical, I'll use an example of a diagnostics company here in La Jolla. It was the band getting back together. So the guys that have been part of the founding team of BioSite that sold for $1.8 billion were getting back together. So the VP of R&D and the head of sales, Chris Hibbert and Paul McPherson, Dr. McPherson, got back together to found the company. I was early looking at the company. We helped them with the A round from Fred Dotzler of De Novo. Funny story about Fred when we presented him the Astute Medical opportunity. Fred has a license plate on his car. He drives around San Francisco that says 92X. And in San Diego, we have a radio station, 91X. Folks didn't know, but 92X was his return on BioSite. So he was an early investor, 92X return. So we told Fred, look, we won't take this to anybody else. You're an early investor in BioSite if you're willing to meet our price and terms. And he said yes. So that's how we closed the A round. It's a $7 million A round with Fred and De Novo in Astute Medical. I hadn't closed my first fund yet, so we had the opportunity to come in the B round. And we went out for B round term sheets, and we kind of divided up the landscape among Chris and Fred and myself, and looking at the prospective top tier funds that would invest in astute medical. And we each approached several of our favorites, and we got 3 top tier VC term sheets. And we called the one we wanted back first at 11 a.m. on a Friday, and he said, let me check with my partners. At 1:30 on Friday, we got a call back. We liked their price and they met our terms. So we accepted Domain and Delphi. And at the 11th hour, Johnson & Johnson through JJDC wanted to come into the transaction. They went from a $20 million round to a $26.5 million round. All of the private investors that wanted to come in, including the CEO's brother, Chris Hibbert's brother, were kicked off the table to make room for Johnson & Johnson, except for more venture partners. So that's an example of how we add value to companies over 2 years since the Series A round, and becoming a part of the Series B round. We did a bridge to the C round. We invested in the C round with MPM and others, and then a D round with Ortho Clinical. So that's an example of astute medical. How things have changed when we've seen the ups and downs. Somebody mentioned Theranos. Now we've got Grail out there. I've seen more CTC deals for blood tests than I've ever seen, more business plans in that space going back 5, 6, 7 years ago, circulating tumor cells for diagnosing oncology or cancer in blood. So it's an interesting time. I think there are going to be some big winners. It's still too early to tell, and there's going to be some big losers, as we've already seen. So things are shifting, and we think it's an exciting time in the diagnostic space, and we're out there looking and uncovering every rock, looking for the best opportunities. We do look for very talented teams. So I mentioned Astute Medical. They've been there and done it before with BioSite. So we'd like to see that track record, or at least someone on the management team that's done it before and has that deep domain expertise and knows where the trends are headed in the industry and what the competition's doing and where the opportunities are. And so we do look for very, very talented teams. Typically we come in, as I mentioned, Series B and C rounds. So that's where we like to see the team in place. Doesn't mean all the management team has to be there. That's okay if there's a hole or two and there's a profile for that person. Often we can be helpful in bringing and filling in a gap or two in the top management team. And we do look for the talent around the boardroom. So in the case of Astute Medical, we had an A++ board and an A++ management team. So we look for A management teams and A boards of directors. And so that's some of our criteria.
So you bet on the jockey, not the horse?
Both, actually.
Tom, would you like to kind of give us an idea of what the Blues are looking for in the area of diagnostics?
Sure. So not surprisingly, the Blues are interested in finding companies that hit the triple or even quadruple aim, however many aims you want to hit, of healthcare. That would be technologies that are better, where the patients are better served, you drive quality outcomes, you can help providers practice within the evidence-based standards, and ideally doing all that for at least the same cost, if not lower cost. Or at least if you look at an individual case, maybe the technology may cost more in the near term, but long term it'll lead to better outcomes, lower cost overall in terms of care pathways for the patient. So not surprisingly, we are looking for investments, including Theranos, and I'll talk about that in a minute, that at least at the thesis at the time we invest can hit all those aims. So we invested in a company called HeartFlow, which, if you were to look at the diagnostic landscape for cardiovascular disease, you'd be better off, at least the current landscape before HeartFlow, you'd be better off in the flipping a coin and deciding whether or not you have heart disease than doing any of the tests you could go walk down the street, go to the hospital and do. But yet we're paying as a at least in the U.S. $20 billion a year on all of that. And so, big waste, but still, that's what happens every day. And so along comes HeartFlow, which is, again, much like Theranos technology, commercialized out of Stanford. Great group. We invested 5 years ago, right after they had their first big study. I use the term big loosely. I think they had a couple hundred patients. And I got excited about the opportunity. So fast forward to today, and and they've hit FDA approval, and then after FDA approval, we've helped them approach payers and figure out how to put together the economic case so you could secure reimbursement, which is obviously, if you think about a payer fund, that's where we should try to help add value. We've seen so many companies that get FDA approval and spend anywhere from 2 to 5 years trying to figure out their reimbursement and how to get paid. It's not a very good, it's a sad statistic, because you think about all the capital that's being burned while you're not getting paid for working so hard to develop the technologies that you've developed. And so we're interested in companies that have, again, that have enough evidence, or at least to know how to set up a study that take into account all aspects of what a diagnostic company should think about. So you should not only think about, is it better or more sensitive, specific, accurate, et cetera, than the existing technologies out there that you would substitute for, but what's the economic rationale? Why should we pay for it? Why should this be the new technology that we use to evaluate whatever condition is under consideration? Now I can't help, because this Theranos has been mentioned a couple times. So one of the founder of Sandbox was actually on the board. This was 5-6 years ago, so we've been following the case pretty closely, as well as the first Blue Fund actually invested. A bit of an update. So I wouldn't bury them yet. Maybe I'll just say that. They've settled all the lawsuits, even though we'll see if, I think John Carreyrou from the Wall Street Journal was looking for a second Pulitzer Prize, and may have embellished a little bit as to all of the badness that was going on. But pretty much everything's been settled from anybody that was named in any of the articles, and they're going to raise some more money. So hopefully good news for the diagnostic world. We'll see. Stay tuned. Because there really is something there. That's what I can say. The technology actually does work, despite what you might see, or despite what will be in the movie or TV, made for TV movie, whatever comes out. So good news for that. And then anything else? I think I'll stop there. Basically, we're just looking for companies that are approaching big problems.
You brought up a key subject, which is reimbursement.
Mm-hmm.
How does your fund help get reimbursement?
So we don't help get reimbursement, because you need to keep things separate for
Right.
sure. But what's been interesting is there are several plans that are working more closely with provider systems to develop programs which companies can enter to run trials. So Highmark, which is a Pittsburgh-based Blue Plan, started a program called the Vitals Program. And they collaborate with West Pennsylvania Allegheny Hospital System. And the West Penn docs actually set up the trial in collaboration with the company, study the technology, and then Highmark, being the payer, does the economic analysis, and then in parallel with the clinical analyses that go on. So that's data that HeartFlow actually went through that. They were one of the first companies through that program, and so we helped make them aware of that program. They applied, they got in, and that data was recently published, just 5 weeks ahead of when the Blue Technology Evaluation Group took that into account and gave HeartFlow a positive tech assessment. And so there's Highmark, there's Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina, there's Blue Shield of California. They're all these new programs are popping up to help companies develop a common set of evidence that can be evaluated for when a plan is considering their medical policy.
So they don't have to have an investment from you to get into one of those?
No, yeah.
They just have to know about the plan.
They have to know about the plan, and then we're trying to help stand up more of those programs, because there's value for everybody. And then certainly we pay close attention to companies that go through the programs if we haven't already invested in them.
Right. Alexis, maybe you can speak a little bit about where you see diagnostics going in the NGS space and post-genome.
Yeah, sure. I think for a diagnostics company, the challenges, or there are benefits and there are obstacles, right? Benefits, whether the benefits of bringing a new diagnostics to make a diagnosis cheaper, faster, better. And for obstacles, like Tom has mentioned, several factors that really affect how fast a diagnostics method could be adopted. That could be mainly, well, one big factor is reimbursement and the regulation, protection of IP, right? How long can you really adopt, well, your developed method can be adopted by the physicians and the medical community. I think when we look at companies, so we look at really, besides the new benefits the technology brings, really, where can we really tackle the challenges? Whether the diagnostics has a clear utility, clinical utility, that can really help you, help the medical community to adopt the technology faster, and whether really there is a value proposition to make the insurance company to think that they really need to pay for the diagnosis compared with the traditional method. So when we look at the diagnostic space, so out of these four major areas, so we look at the diagnostics as one space, and then we will invest. So one angle that we look at is whether there is something that previously we couldn't do and suddenly we could do with the new technologies. Like next generation sequencing is one example. So if we look back in the past several years, which diagnostics approach really came to the market and be adopted very quickly? Like non-invasive prenatal testing was one area, right? There were 4 companies that were developed in the US just in a matter of 3 to 5 years and became either public company or private company that has a value range between, I guess, 500 million to 800 million, right? Sequoia, Veronata, Ariosa, Natera. So that was a good example. A simple test by NGS could be adopted quickly and replace the existing invasive method and really, well, grasp attention from the physician and really used by millions of pregnant women. So that was a perfect example, like what previously then you couldn't do, suddenly you could do that very, very quickly, cheaply by next generation sequencing. So from our angle, we believe next generation sequencing will enable a lot of new applications in various fields. So one area we have been looking at, for example, I believe there will be some disruption coming out is diagnosis for immuno-oncology treatment. So yeah, so by looking at the immune repertoire, how you can help to decide whether a patient is qualified or will be good responder to a certain drug and to which drug. So we recently invested in a company called Ceramune. So this company, by synthesizing actually billions of antigen mimic, trying to figure out really what disease could be classified by the mimic of the antigens. So that's a company that has a diagnostics angle, but also could be valuable for therapeutics. So if you identify the antigen or antigen mimics, whether you can develop some vaccine, right, using that information. So I guess that's also a trend, and then we see a company that could stand alone and also could survive longer, probably something that has a technology even beyond the first application. So we start to see like merging of diagnostics and therapeutics and new technologies coming that meet both needs. Yeah, I'll stop.
Yeah, that's great. Have you seen any use of telomeres as a predictor of oncology treatments?
Yeah, there are companies exactly. Yeah, by looking at the telomeres, and I think they believe there are companies, who look at the CTC using markers that mark the telomeres.
Is that reimbursable yet?
Oh, I think it's a far from. It's still, I think, in the research stage. It's a far from being reimbursed.
I appreciate you mentioning Sequenom as the founder of Sequenom. That's nice. You know, when you start these companies way back when, just to get the mass weight of DNA, you never know where they're going to be applied. So, Dennis, the dream of every diagnostic company is not only to get reimbursed and have a 92x return to their investors, but to maybe get acquired by Roche. So why don't you talk a little bit about your acquisition process, since that's what you've been doing for the last couple of years, and how would a company, at what stage would a company come to you? When do you like to look at them? What makes you pull the hammer?
Sure.
Well, Lola, happy to hear you say that. Like when we look at the company, we would think, will Roche buy it? When will Roche buy it? How much would you be willing to pay?
Yeah.
So we think of investing in
Yeah,
diagnostic
exactly.
companies.
Yeah, I mean, you know, with the market's fluctuations as they are, you know, sort of consistently out there looking for things. But before going into specifics, I just want to summarize a little. Diagnostics is being like overshadowed now by pharma and therapeutic opportunities, but overall, just within our company, you know, like our revenues are north of $10 billion a year. Overall, for the industry, the healthcare spend on diagnostics is just 2%, but 60 to 70% of clinical decisions are made based on diagnostics, right? So there's a lot of value that hasn't been captured by the diagnostics company, by the players making instruments or decision supporting tools or instruments on actually preventive diagnostics, or you know, better screening and better planning of the therapeutic interventions. With Roche, as you know, we have basically our pharmaceutical division is the leader in oncoimmunology. This interplay between the companion diagnostics and optimized treatment for the cancer, it's paramount, right? So from that perspective, there are tremendous opportunities out there, and as many drugs are getting off the patent, it's the clinical decision support tools, the algorithms behind them, and the critical mass that you need of data to understand the diseases and to provide the best treatments that is really going to make a difference. Then, and just one last thing, like from perspective of Roche Diagnostics, we do have a luxury of size, you know, being present in 150 plus companies. 40% of interactions that FDA has with the diagnostics businesses, it has with Roche, right? So from that perspective, what we look at first when we look at particular any acquisition target, it's this uniqueness, right? That you have to have potential sustainable competitive advantage, and could be price, it could be, you know, point of care business to really scale things up that were not possible to do unless you're in a huge lab in the past, or it's things that can prevent the disease, or can allow for early intervention that would, you know, potentially get you into curative outcomes, say with cancer, with CTC. It's a very, very daring investment that Illumina did in Grail. Yeah, very interesting to watch. But basically, we do look first and foremost into the science, right? Like what the opportunity is, and we plan having the luxury of being a sizable company, having venture arm, having, you know, a lot of investments going into early research. We have a luxury of planning with our potential partner on the basically milestones and value inflection points, right? So the acquisitions that you see in many cases when, you know, there's a press release that it's $1 billion acquisition, well, it's a biotech money, right? The reality of it is that the actual investment from the acquirer could be, as an upfront, could be quite less. But I think what's been underplayed by the media, and something that I really want to say I'm very proud of being part of Roche, is how much value we can add aside from the financials, right? And that goes into long-term planning, be it on the reimbursement side, be it on regulatory side, be it on our sheer ability to scale things up and upsell, you know, with our existing customer base.
Well, you have a great existing customer base because you acquired PCR really early.
Yes, we do.
And that kind of
I
sets you
think
on a
we made-
trajectory.
Yeah, we made quite a lot on out licensing actually, the technology
Yeah.
as well.
And how much do you out-license now?
Well, PCR, the bulk of PCR patents is off patents, so there are some other things that we're looking at. I'll leave it there.
Okay, so you're talking about biobucks, and that's not really the reality of what you pay for when you acquire a company. But what is the reality?
Well, I mean, the reality is that, again,
Who wins?
You have to.
Does the venture guys win?
Well, it's,
Does the patient win?
I think, yeah, I mean, for us, we are there for the patients, right? I don't think, in the vast majority of cases, we buy companies where there's still a lot of risk involved, right? So it has to be win-win. Like, the time we sign the deal, when as the actual work starts, right? So it has to make sense financially, and, we basically, we are up for creative deal making, be it build to buy companies or all sorts of other arrangements. I mean, from that perspective, being part of Roche really helps me to sort of fine tune the deal towards the needs of the investor, right? But what's important, yeah, it's if one party drags all the value in, then likely it's not going to work. There has to be a cultural click. You're in it for several years, usually, so there are a lot of things that have to come together. Integration of the company. I mean, there are a lot of ingredients there.
I know. I used to work for Millipore. We talked about Milliporizing everything that we bought, and they didn't Milliporize well. They got spun back out again. So, why don't each of the panelists, starting with you, Terry, talk a little bit about how people in the audience might work with your fund, might approach you. What's the best way to approach you?
Yeah, great question. So I think I sat in on some of the last panelists. I've been doing this for a long time. I've been in San Diego for 31 years. So a lot of the top law firms and the top accounting firms, the top IP attorneys, they all know me. So go on LinkedIn, ask your network of friends, find a source to me, because those deals get a much higher priority on my radar screen of the 600 to 800 deals a year I look at. We make 2 to 5 new investments a year. So we're really screening hard. I have a pre-screening checklist that I use to kind of go through and see what stage the company was at. A number of the companies here asked for the one-on-one meetings, and they weren't a great fit for our sweet spot. So we kind of want to know where you are. So if you could put that in a nutshell right up front, it allows me to quickly assess what stage you're at. Again, we're looking for something very special at the Series A round, and then if it's the growth stage round, we want to see that you're really there, ready to make the best use of that round of capital, how you're going to use that capital, where it's going to get you, how efficient have you been with your burn rate and getting valuation creation out of your venture to date. But yeah, most people know me, and the best way is to have someone refer the deal into me, and then it's going to get my highest priority. If it comes in through another source or just over the transom, it's less likely to get my attention. And if it comes from another investor, even better, because investors, it's a small community, folks, and we generally know each other, and if we don't, we're willing to meet and get to know each other, because we all want to do deals together. And unfortunately, in San Diego, we're in a situation where there's very few funds left, so I'm partnering with a number of groups. I was in Denver last week and partnering with some folks there. We've done an Austin, Texas deal, and we're partnering with folks there. So we want to reach out and partner with not just the big funds in the Valley, but with other corporates and other investors across the country.
That brings up an interesting note about the venture capital industry, that it has shrunk from the originals, and it has expanded in the corporate world more than you ever would have thought 30 years ago that the corporate worlds would come in. You want to speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, great point. And that brings up another example. I think stories are the best case. So great lead-in and segue on the corporates, because thank God they've stepped up in a big way. We have no idea what's going to happen in the current administration with Trump and his budget cuts, and how that's going to affect NSF and NIH grants and SBIRs, et cetera. But as we look forward, it brings up an example, and Alexis, I talked briefly about this before the panel, is a company I saw very early. Founders are friends from another exit we had, a company called EcoATM. We sold to Coinstar for $350 million in cash and made 4 times our money in less than 18 months. The founder started a company called Genome. So pre-A, I had already been chairman of a security company, and they had a genetic sequencing system on a chip. So I believed in that opportunity. And so we came in prior to Qualcomm Ventures coming in. And we should never forget about Qualcomm here, because they really are our most active investor, and they're a great partner to have. And they came in with $10 million in the Series A round, of which we were a part of. And not too recently, we closed a $22 million B round with Dell, EMC, and Microsoft and AWS. So now we have the cloud solution, as well as the chip ability to sequence in the order of minutes, an order of magnitude faster than the software that's available today on Illumina's equipments or others. And we also have the ability, we're sequencing 30,000 NICU babies, so the premature babies at Rady's Children's Hospital as a partnership every year, and both parents. So you think about that for a moment, 90,000 genomes a year here. And not only that, last fall we set the Guinness Book of Records with Genome chipset in not only sequencing, but diagnosing rare childhood disease. And I think it was 26 hours, something that would have taken months, if not years, to diagnose prior to this technology. And that's the point Alexis was making earlier today. It's fantastic, this ability. And I think the last time I met with the company, which was a couple of months ago, they had already processed 15 terabytes of data. It's probably closer to 20 terabytes of data today. So you think about big data, and the last panel was bioinformatics and big data. That's what we're doing with this genetic sequencing and diagnosing technology.
It is hand in glove, and Google is a big venture contributor in our neck of the woods in Northern California. How about you, Tom?
Yeah, so I'd almost just want to say ditto and put Mike down, but just like Terry, we look at about 700, 800 companies a year, and so those that come in through, that are referred in, certainly you get a little extra attention. And although we're a little more challenged because we do have a broader scope, because we invest anywhere from 2 people on a laptop on up to buyout stage companies. So,
Do you have any angel groups that you particularly like that are feeders for you?
I think we love everybody equally. Because
That's impossible.
I think about our syndicate. So we really have co-invested with so many different folks all across the country and outside the U.S. We have one interesting thing that's been at play. You mentioned the rise of corporate venture. Obviously, we're backed by corporates, and then we have the Blues, but also Walgreens and a couple other strategics. But when we first started 9 years ago, only 2 or 3 Blue plans had their own truly sincere efforts to do direct investing. And now, fast forward to today, and there's over a dozen, if not 13, 14, 15, that are standing up their own direct investment teams. And I don't know if that's a function of the market. I mean, there's just so much opportunity, as well as they have a lot of cash, and hopefully we've made it look easy for them. But I said, oh, we can do that. But there's certainly, whether it's us or if we get referrals from Blue plans to us, it's a good way in. And but there are so many different opportunities for folks to connect with strategics. I think it's a great time to be an entrepreneur.
So nobody has to know you directly. If they know a Blue plan, they can come to you.
Yeah, or I mean, direct is best, but we get referrals in from Blue plans, from hospital systems, from angel funds, on and on and on. So, anyway.
Alexis, how would somebody approach you if they wanted to work with Illumina?
Right, so deals that come to our firm could come from Illumina, our LP, the portfolio companies that we invested in, our personal network, professional services like advisors, law firms, and we also come to conferences, talk with angel funds. So we are quite diligent trying to understand what the ecosystem is, what kind of new technologies are coming out. So I guess if you have a way to, be referred to a VC firm, I guess that would be the best way to approach them. But I guess I see people between people who are very persistent and compared to people who will just send you an email, and you may have like 100 emails in your list, right? So in order to go through every one of them, it may take a couple of days, but you could send a couple more emails just to remind if you haven't heard back. I kind of see between the difference of persistence and non-persistent, and you also see the the personality of this CEO and whether he's gonna stick to what he believes in. So, but I guess I will remind somebody, the first time when you meet with a VC, try to be crisp clear about really what value proposition that your technology or your company brings. So sometimes I hear people are too protective about their technology, but at least you can say really what your data, well, what kind of data, right, that you have produced that distinguish yourself from others, or really what makes someone who should really invest another hour to talk with you. I just sometimes feel people are too protective or too vague about their value proposition. That makes you immediately lose interest from the VCs.
Excellent point, excellent point. I'm going to, at this point, say, does the audience have any questions they'd like to ask of our esteemed panel? Yes.
So I kind of was interested with the examples that I think illustrate one of the challenges in the diagnostic space. I mean, Terry, you mentioned Astute, where they're about 150 million in, somewhere around there.
It's over, well north of 100, yeah. So
Yeah,
over 100
okay,
million.
somewhere north of 100. Tom, what's 600 million into Theranos, or
A lot.
a lot?
A lot.
You know, Foundation Medicine had close to 100, and first day on the public markets was maybe 2 or 3 times invested capital. So unless Dennis is really going to start to, step up, 92x doesn't seem like it's all that likely in this era. Do you guys have comments on that?
Yeah, I think it's been a challenge, though, this big capital stack that we're talking about, that's been required. It just shows the difficulty of, getting these diagnostic companies adopted in the marketplace. It takes a lot of cash, it takes a lot of runway, and it's not easy. So I think it's a challenge, and there have been periods where it was much easier, and there was a lot more of excitement, and there was a lot more of an auction to acquire these companies, and that's what we had with Biosite. I think we had 7 bidders for acquiring the company, and so we were able to drive the price up quite significantly. Until we have that kind of environment, we're not going to see those kinds of returns.
Yeah, but to that capital point, I mean, I think that's one thing that I would love to try to help companies improve upon. Part of the reason you have those huge capital stacks is it takes so darn long to get reimbursement in place.
Yep.
And it's not for no good reason other than we just have a slow-moving system that tries to evaluate evidence. So we take HeartFlow. So I throw them on the list. They've raised a couple $100 million, but they've published 100+ journal articles. They have 100+ patents, almost 200 now. Anyway, but huge stack of IP, huge amount of evidence. And it took 4 years post, 3-4 years post FDA approval to start to get reimbursement put in place. And I still haven't found good answers as to why. So here's a company with tremendous evidence and wonderful connections. We're talking to the highest levels of folks, and just the machine moves too slow. And so I think if we can, as a U.S. healthcare system specifically, figure out either here or abroad, perhaps leverage the European infrastructure more efficiently, because they already have good systems in place. 75% of medical device companies do their clinicals over in Europe. It's cheaper, faster, they know how to do it, and then bring that data over to the U.S. But that's part of the challenge. It just takes too long, and when you're burning a ton, you got to raise those big capital stocks.
Well, totally second what Tom said. I think sometimes some people may say, oh, in order to invest successfully, probably it's better for you to come in when the technology has been validated and you are about to sell your company or about to go IPO, and then you can make 2 to 3 times money very quickly. And early investors, all their money sunk even to a recapped round. Yeah, but I think the different maybe geographic areas would really kind of the story would be different. For example, in China, right, Diagnostics is really has a big hype there. Companies who have like less than $1 million revenue in diagnostics using NGS could have a valuation for $300 million. So it's a very, I guess, irrational market, but a lot of investors really make money out of it, and also a lot of founders make money out of it. Yeah, but I guess in the US, the challenging has been there. You just cannot ignore it. It has to be part of the equation, even to think how to build a company or how to invest in a company.
If I may add, I think it also depends. You have to be crystal clear and understanding where the market is going, and no one has a crystal ball, but there are a lot of outliers out there. A typical diagnostics company also has value inflection points, right? And you might not want to go all the way to commercial, build a team, and completely understand the product market fit, do all these rollouts that take a lot of time, take a lot of resources, they can take a lot of cash, right? There could be opportunities to basically have a proof of concept instrumental service that you can shop around. And there are not that many players out there, but I think there's still, healthy competition between them. So if you end up beating your company, which is very early stage, against 3-5 companies, you can actually get quite high axe as a founder or as a first round investor. So that you don't have to necessarily plan for the complete commercialization cycle in the current system. But then there are outliers, so we discussed a little bit healthcare IT, and that usually doesn't scale, maybe as much as Google's or Facebook's in the world in diagnostic space, but it still scales pretty significantly. So capital intensity might not be there, and you can outsource so many things, to the cloud, to other partners, and so on.
Well, I know when Genomic Health started, half of the workforce was calling up to get reimbursement for the HER2/neu tests, because that's what they did, and it wasn't something they invented, but they invented the model of trying to get it reimbursed. I mean, that was really their underlying thing. Okay, well, we've had a good discussion. I really appreciate all our panelists being here, and we're going to let everybody go to the next event tonight, which I think is the cocktail party. So thank you, all of the panelists. Please give us a hand.